My name is Tyler, and I never thought I'd be the kind of guy telling a story like this, but here we are. It all started 6 months ago when I began dating Vanessa. She was gorgeous, outgoing, and had this magnetic personality that drew everyone in. From the moment we matched on the dating app, I was captivated. We had amazing conversations, shared similar interests, and the chemistry was undeniable. For our first few dates, I went all out. I took her to trendy spots, bought tickets to shows, really tried to impress her. Dating in the city isn't cheap, and I found myself spending more than I normally would, but I justified it as the cost of getting to know someone special. After about a month, though, I started to notice a pattern. Whenever we went out, Vanessa never reached for her wallet. Not once. At first, I didn't mind. I'm traditional in some ways, and I don't have a problem paying, especially early on. But as we continued dating and became more comfortable with each other, I expected things to even out a bit. Maybe she'd grab the check occasionally, or at least offer to split it. That never happened. Instead, her expectations seemed to grow. Each restaurant needed to be nicer than the last, each date more elaborate. When I suggested a casual night in or a walk in the park, she'd scrunch up her nose and say, "That's boring. Let's do something fun instead." And fun always seemed to translate to expensive. I'm not poor by any means. I have a good job in software development, but I'm also practical. I have student loans to pay off, a 401k to fund, and dreams of owning a home someday. I believe in living within my means and saving for the future. Vanessa, on the other hand, seemed to subscribe to the live for today philosophy, especially when someone else was funding it. Things came to a head about 3 months into our relationship. I had made reservations at a new restaurant that had great reviews. It wasn't a fast food joint or anything. It was a nice place with delicious food and a warm atmosphere. The kind of place where you could have a quality meal and good conversation without breaking the bank. When I told Vanessa where we were going, she didn't seem thrilled, but she didn't object either. I thought maybe she was just having an off day. We arrived at the restaurant. We're seated at a cozy corner table, and I was feeling good about the evening ahead, until I saw her face as she scanned the menu. "This is it?" she said, not even bothering to lower her voice. "This is where you brought me." I felt my cheeks flush as a couple at the next table glanced over. "What's wrong with it?" I asked quietly. "The reviews are great, and I thought you liked Italian food." She rolled her eyes dramatically. "It's so basic. Look at this place. It's practically an Olive Garden." It was nothing like a chain restaurant, and the comparison was both inaccurate and insulting to the small, family-owned business we were sitting in. "I thought we'd go somewhere nicer," she continued, making no effort to hide her disappointment. "Somewhere with a real ambiance. Don't you want to treat me to something special?" I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "This is a nice place, Vanessa. The food is supposed to be excellent, and I thought it would be somewhere we could talk and enjoy each other's company." She scoffed. "Ugh, you're so cheap, Tyler. A guy with your job should be taking his girlfriend to better places than this. Marco from work always takes his girlfriend to the top restaurants in the city." There it was. Cheap. The word hung in the air between us, stinging more than I wanted to admit. I wasn't being cheap. I was being reasonable. There's a difference, but Vanessa couldn't or wouldn't see it. "I'm not cheap," I said finally, keeping my voice steady. "I'm responsible with my money. There's nothing wrong with that." "Keep telling yourself that," she muttered, then reluctantly ordered what turned out to be an amazing pasta dish that she barely touched out of spite. The rest of the evening was tense. I tried to salvage the date, asking about her day, telling her about a project I was excited about at work. But Vanessa was cold, giving one-word answers and checking her phone constantly. When we left, I paid the bill, as usual, and we walked to the car in silence. I was seriously questioning our compatibility at this point. Was this really someone I wanted to continue dating? But then, as we drove back to her place, she softened. She put her hand on my arm, apologized for being moody, and said she was just stressed from work. By the time I dropped her off, she was all smiles and sweet kisses again, and I found myself wondering if I'd overreacted. That was the first time she called me cheap, but it wouldn't be the last. Over the next few weeks, it became her go-to criticism whenever I suggested something that didn't meet her standards. Cooking dinner at my place? That's what cheap guys do to avoid paying for real dates. Going to a movie instead of a concert? You're just too cheap to buy good tickets. Taking the subway instead of an Uber? So cheap. Each time it bothered me a little more. Not because I was insecure about my finances. I knew I was making smart choices. But because it revealed something fundamental about Vanessa's character and her view of our relationship. She seemed to value experiences solely based on their price tag, and she saw me primarily as the provider of those experiences. Still, I tried to make it work. I cared about her, and relationships require compromise, right? So I adjusted my budget, cut back in other areas of my life, and tried to meet her halfway. Then came the conversation about her birthday. We were having dinner at my apartment, which she had reluctantly agreed to after I promised to cook her favorite dish, when she brought it up. So, my birthday's coming up in 3 weeks, she said, twirling her wine glass. I've been thinking about how we should celebrate. Oh? I took a sip of my own wine. What did you have in mind? She leaned forward, eyes sparkling with excitement. I want you to take me to Emerson's. I nearly choked on my drink. Emerson's was one of the most exclusive steakhouses in the city. The kind of place where celebrities dine and where the cheapest cut of meat costs more than my entire grocery budget for the week. Emerson's, I repeated, trying to keep my voice neutral. That's quite a choice. I know, she squealed, clapping her hands together. It's perfect. I've always wanted to go, and now I have a boyfriend who can take me. I set my glass down carefully. Vanessa, Emerson's is really expensive. I'm not sure if... Oh my God! She cut me off, her excitement instantly turning to irritation. Are you seriously going to be cheap about my birthday? It's one night, Tyler, one special night for me. I'm not asking you to take me there every week. It's not about being cheap, I tried to explain. It's about being realistic. A dinner there could easily cost $500 or more. So? She asked, as if the amount were trivial. You make good money. I deserve to be treated to nice things. All my friends' boyfriends take them to places like Emerson's. If they can afford it, that's great for them, I said. But I have other financial responsibilities and goals. She rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. You're always talking about your financial goals. Live a little, Tyler. What's the point of making good money if you don't enjoy it? I do enjoy my money, I countered. I just prefer to enjoy it responsibly. Responsibly, she mimicked, making air quotes. That's just another word for cheap. I felt a surge of frustration but tried to stay calm. What if we compromise? We could go to that French place you liked last month. It's still a nice birthday dinner, but more within my budget. No, she said firmly, crossing her arms. I've made up my mind. It's Emerson's or nothing. I deserve it. She smirked, adding, after putting up with your cheapness all these months, I think I've earned a proper night out. I sat back, studying her face. Was this really the person I'd been falling for? This entitled woman who saw my financial responsibility as a character flaw? Who thought she deserved to have hundreds of dollars spent on her just because it was her birthday? But as I looked at her, still beautiful, still magnetic, I realized I'd been ignoring red flags for months. It wasn't going to get better. She wasn't going to suddenly start appreciating simple pleasures or respecting my boundaries. In that moment, I made a decision. Not out of spite, not out of anger, but out of clarity. All right, I said. Emerson's it is. Her face lit up instantly. Really? Oh, Tyler, thank you. She jumped up and came around the table to kiss me. You won't regret it. I'll wear that dress you love, and it'll be the most amazing night. I smiled, but said nothing more about it that evening. For the next 3 weeks, Vanessa talked about almost nothing else. She researched the menu, told all her friends where we were going, even bought a new pair of shoes specifically for the occasion. With each passing day, she grew more excited, and I became more resolved. When her birthday arrived, I picked her up at 7 p.m. sharp. She looked stunning in her red dress, hair perfectly styled, eyes bright with anticipation. As we drove to the restaurant, she chattered happily about the celebrities who had been spotted there and what she planned to order. Emerson's was every bit as opulent as its reputation suggested. Crystal chandeliers, velvet chairs, waitstaff in formal attire. We were led to our table, A good one, thanks to the reservation I'd made weeks in advance and presented with leather-bound menus. I watched as Vanessa opened hers, her eyes widening at the selection. She didn't even glance at the prices. "I'm thinking the lobster appetizer to start," she said dreamily, "and then the Wagyu filet mignon. Oh, and we have to get a bottle of champagne, of course." I nodded. "Get whatever you want. It's your birthday, after all." She beamed at me across the table. "See? Isn't this better than some casual place? The energy here is just different." She gestured around us. "This is how people with money live, Tyler. This could be our life if you weren't so tight with your wallet." I let the comment slide and ordered a modest meal for myself. Throughout dinner, Vanessa was in her element. She took photos of every course, texted her friends, and kept commenting on how this is more like it and how she could get used to this lifestyle. The food was exceptional, I had to admit, but as I watched Vanessa revel in the luxury, all I could see was a person whose values were fundamentally misaligned with mine. Someone who would never be satisfied with what I could reasonably provide. Someone who saw me as a means to an end rather than a partner. When the dessert plates were cleared and the waiter brought the check, I saw Vanessa's eyes flick toward the leather folder and then quickly away, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She took out her phone, presumably to take one last photo of the evening. I picked up the check, looked at the total, $478.92, and set it back down on the table between us. "So," I said casually, "since I'm so cheap, you got this, right?" Her head snapped up from her phone, jaw dropping open. "What?" "The bill," I said, nodding toward it. "I figured you'd want to pay since you've made it clear that my spending habits are so embarrassing to you." Her face flushed deep red. "You can't be serious. It's my birthday." "Yes, and you chose one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, despite knowing my feelings about excessive spending. You've called me cheap at least a dozen times in the past month alone, so I thought maybe you were planning to treat yourself to the kind of evening you deserve." "Tyler, this isn't funny," she hissed, eyes darting around to see if anyone was listening. "You know I can't afford this place." "No?" I raised an eyebrow. "Then why is it so reasonable to expect me to spend a week's worth of groceries on one meal?" Her expression cycled rapidly through shock, anger, and then calculation. She leaned forward, lowering her voice to a venomous whisper. "If you do this, if you embarrass me like this, we're through. I mean it, Tyler. This relationship will be over." I nodded slowly, maintaining eye contact. "I understand, and I want you to know that I'm not doing this to be cruel or to embarrass you. I'm doing it because I finally realized something important." "What's that?" she snapped. "That I deserve better than someone who constantly belittles me for being financially responsible. That I want a partner who values me for who I am, not for what I can buy them. That I'm not actually cheap. I'm just not willing to be used anymore." She stared at me, speechless for once. I reached into my wallet and placed my credit card on the table. "I'll pay for my portion. You cover yours, or we can split it evenly. Your choice." "You can't be serious," she repeated, but her voice was weaker now. "I've never been more serious," I replied. "This is the end of the road for us, Vanessa. Not because of this dinner, but because we want fundamentally different things from a relationship." The waiter approached, and I gestured for him to give us another minute. Vanessa was frantically digging through her tiny purse, as if a forgotten credit card or hundreds in cash might materialize. "I don't have that kind of money with me," she whispered desperately. "You know that." I nodded. "Then I'll cover it this time. But this is the last time I'll be paying for anything for you." Without waiting for her response, I motioned for the waiter, handed him my card, and asked for the check to be processed. The silence between Vanessa and me was deafening as we waited. When I signed the receipt, I left a generous tip, because unlike what Vanessa thought, I was never cheap, just thoughtful about where my money went. As we left the restaurant, Vanessa was seething, but kept her composure in public. The drive to her apartment was excruciating. She alternated between angry silence and tearful accusations, calling me everything from cruel to manipulative to, yes, cheap. "I can't believe you ruined my birthday," she said as I pulled up outside her building. "All because you couldn't handle a little teasing about being frugal." "It wasn't teasing, Vanessa. It was constant criticism of one of my core values, and it wasn't just about the money, it was about respect, she scoffed. I respected you. No, I said quietly. You saw me as an ATM with legs. That's not respect. Whatever, she muttered, grabbing her purse. You'll regret this. Good luck finding someone else who looks like me and puts up with your boring life. Without waiting for a response, she slammed the car door and stomped toward her building, heels clicking angrily on the pavement. I watched her go, and instead of regret or doubt, I felt only relief. A weight had been lifted. No more walking on eggshells, no more sacrificing my financial peace of mind, no more being made to feel inadequate for having boundaries. That was 3 months ago. I haven't spoken to Vanessa since, though I've heard through mutual friends that she's dating some finance guy now. I wish them both well. I really do. Maybe he's got the resources and the desire to keep up with her expectations. As for me, I've been enjoying the simple pleasures again. Hiking on weekends, cooking at home, building up my savings account, and yes, occasionally dining out at restaurants I can comfortably afford. Last week, I matched with someone new on a dating app. For our first date, I suggested a casual dinner at a local place known for its amazing burgers. She enthusiastically agreed and then added, "And let's split the check. I hate all those outdated dating rules." I smiled at my phone, feeling hopeful for the first time in a long while. It's amazing how 3 simple words, "let's split the check," could sound so beautiful. The funny thing is, I'm actually more generous now than I ever was with Vanessa, because when someone appreciates you for who you are rather than what you can give them, you want to give them the world. But only if you can afford it, of course. Let me know what you think in the comments below.